Welcome to the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, where it is never too early for fantasy football. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Alex.
As always, thank you for downloading, listening, liking, and commenting on our podcast videos. Please join our community by subscribing to us on the socials. Our handle on all platforms is at N2E Fantasy. We're also available on all major podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy. Alex, what do we have on today's show?
On this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, we will recap all of the AFC Teams 2026 NFL Draft picks. So we'll go over each team's draft class. We'll just briefly touch over some guys, but really dive in more on the fantasy relevant aspect. But first, Jeff, there's actually been some league news. What do we have up first?
Yeah, we have a few items here, some big, some not so big. But the Cowboys have announced that they will not give wide receiver George Pickens a contract extension, and he will play under the franchise tag for them in 2026. And I know that you had thought that George Pickens was rushing to sign it to facilitate a trade, but that did not happen. He did not sign it, and he also was not traded. So I think there was reports out there that George Pickens was going to sign it, but he still has not signed it as of yet.
My understanding is you can't be traded if you don't sign it. So I don't know what happened with that. I don't know if he was under the assumption that he was going to come in and sign it and get a new extension. And then they said they weren't going to extend him. And then everyone heard the rumor or supposed news that he was in to sign it. So people thought, oh, if they're not going to extend him, they're going to trade him. And that turned out either not to be true, or he was there and decided not to sign at the last minute. So either way, didn't get traded, but I think it makes sense for the Cowboys to not extend him at the moment and let him make up for the end of the year last year where he kind of quit on the team, and let him earn his extension.
Absolutely. And we will see. I thought it was so that he was going to sign it so they didn't rescind it if they picked Mekhi Lemon in the first round. So they might have picked a wide receiver and been like, no, we're not going to pay you. Bye.
Well, they're not going to rescind it because then they wouldn't get anything for him if they were going to trade him. And he's not going to sign it because if he gets ticked off that they brought in another wide receiver, he will get fined if he signed the franchise tag. So him not signing it means he can hold out if he wanted to and not really face any repercussions until games start happening.
Absolutely. At his peak, though, the Panthers rescinded Josh Norman's tag. So it does happen. And the Cowboys know that he wouldn't get top dollar right now because a lot of teams don't have the money to sign him at what the franchise tag salary is right now. So that could have been his motivation to sign it, is that he knew he wouldn't get that money in free agency right now. So, but the Cowboys did sign wide receivers Marquez Valdez-Scantling, so MVS gets another job, and wide receiver Tyler Johnson to one-year deals. Tyler Johnson is the more interesting one for me there because I have seen him score some touchdowns, and he still is relatively young. I think he's only 26. But third team is never a good sign at the age of 26. Either of those excite you for fantasy or just camp bodies?
No, just camp bodies or, deep down on the roster. It seems like Fournette is going to be the wide receiver 3 the way that it's set up. So none of these guys really excite me.
Absolutely. Next up, we have a couple of fifth-year options being picked up. The first one was wide receiver Quentin Johnston. And then we have a no-duh one with Jahmyr Gibbs getting picked up as well. So what do you think about Johnston getting the option?
Well, as we've talked about offline, one, I don't think that they should have. But at the same time, I don't think that teams should be giving away massive contracts to wide receiver 3s or 4s at best in the league anyway. And we've seen guys worse than Quentin Johnston get paid a huge amount. So it makes sense with the ballooning contracts for wide receivers. I think it's an $18 million deal, so it gives him more time to prove that he's worth a real big extension. So it makes sense. It gives them more trade leverage too, because it was rumored that they were potentially shopping him. They ended up not trading him, and I think there really wasn't that much interest, or There wasn't really anyone that would have traded what they would have asked for. So it gives Quentin Johnson another chance to be a top 3 wide receiver for the Chargers and prove that he could be one of the top 2. Um, I don't I don't view him as someone that could be a high volume guy. I view him as one of the best deep threats in the game, a situational guy, but a very important situational guy where you either use him as a decoy to draw off the deep two safeties, or if the team's not using too high safety and they put one guy over him, whether zone or man, he'll burn past that guy. And Justin Herbert is good enough to get him on target and make the other team pay. So he kind of blows the top off of the defense, and that is his primary role. Doesn't really contribute much more than that, but he's arguably one of the best, if not the best currently at doing that. So that'll give him props for that. There's a lot of guys that I don't think should have been first round picks. He's one of them because he had some developmental issues that still isn't 100% cleared up, but it's much better than he was as a rookie.
Fair enough. But another one of my favorite receivers, which Quentin Johnson is one of my favorites. The Packers signed wide receiver Jaden Reed just before the draft to a 3-year extension, so longer than Christian Watson.
So they got rid of Wicks and Dobbs this offseason, and they didn't really add much to the wide receiver group. So they extended Reed, and now they have Watson, Reed, and Matthew Golden as the top 3 guys. Those guys are going to get more shares of the target pie, and maybe with 3 guys instead of 5 guys that they're splitting around, maybe they'll actually get chemistry and one of these guys will emerge as a true alpha. I think Watson, when healthy, is most likely to be the nominal one, but I really like Jaden Reed as well as a possession guy. Hopefully they get him more involved. Hopefully these guys can all stay healthy. And hopefully Matthew Golden also makes strides from his rookie year.
Totally agree with that. And both Watson and Reed in my early rankings are in my top 30 wide receivers. Big bump for them, and we'll see what happens there. Speaking of the Packers, their former quarterback got the ultra rare unrestricted free agent tag, and the Aaron Rodgers got that from the Steelers. So he'll be coming back to the Steelers if he comes back to any team at this point. Now, any team could sign him, but the Steelers get the first right of refusal, and they can match it at any given point. So I don't see them not matching it. So for all intent and purposes, I believe that Aaron Rodgers will be back with the Steelers if with any team this year.
Well, there's nowhere else for him to go other than maybe the Arizona Cardinals. So I don't really see another option for him, but they already have 3 quarterbacks on their roster now. They have Howard, they have Rudolph, and they drafted Drew Aller.
Spoiler alert.
All right. Most people by this point have probably watched the draft or at least looked it up, so I'm not really worried about that. But I would expect Rudolph to be the odd man out.
All I'll say is for when we were talking about Quentin Johnston, I didn't bring up the guy that you said was his replacement because I didn't want to give spoilers,
It's his eventual replacement. I seriously doubt he'll do that much year 1. I'm sick of the whole Rodgers. Like, will I retire? Will I not retire? I'm sick of, is his wife real or did he make her up? Like, I'm tired of the whole drama. Who is Brittany? Who is she? There's no picture of her anywhere.
Does anyone care?
I mean, not really. It's more of like a curiosity thing more than actually caring. But it's like he does stuff to get attention, and I'm not a fan of that. Like, you're a grown man, you're in your 40s.
Yep.
Whatever.
He's just trying to seem like a grown-up now. But speaking of wasted roster spots, wasted no more are the Seahawks running back Cam Akers and the Patriots running back Elijah Mitchell, because they both have been released post-draft. So after the draft, the Seahawks and Patriots must have felt like they had enough from their roster to be able to cut these guys and not even use them as camp bodies.
Seahawks are pretty running back needy, so I mean, it just goes to tell you that All Camp Akers is at this point is a camp body.
They have
Emergency veteran and camp body.
they're three deep after the draft. They got Charbonnet, the rookie, and Emmanuel Wilson.
Don't forget about George Halani, the fullback slash H-back.
Maybe they're not as thin as you thought.
I will say, Jeff, and you'll get a kick out of this, there are some local Texans guys I listen to that when the Seahawks cut Cam Akers, they said bring him back because there's not much
Everyone likes him.
behind. There's not much behind Montgomery or Woody Marks in
Not
Houston.
Jordan?
I like
Dude,
Jordan
you've
based
been
off of
talking him
who's
up.
left. Based off of who's left on the Texans, I like Jordan. But
That one start he got last year, look, I've been talking about him all year, even in like, where's that passion now?
I like
You
Woody Marks
discovered him
more.
before they did.
I like Woody Marks more than him, but I like Jawar like a decent amount. I'm not thrilled about the David Montgomery trade because I felt like the Texans gave up too much to get him, and he's old at this point. Like David Montgomery 2 or 3 years ago, I would have loved to have on the Texans, but it seemed like a lot, especially considering in this draft, even some of the better running backs went super late, as we'll talk about. Oh my,
Absolutely.
you're running back needy, and you just passed on all these guys that just hung out there the entire draft. But
So you're telling me you didn't learn from the Texans' mistake because you're putting out a pretty lofty offer in a dynasty league for David Montgomery right now.
David Mon- David Montgomery and Colston Loveland.
For 5 picks.
It's mostly for Colston Loveland, but I need a third running back. So
But speaking of teams that don't need running backs because they drafted one each of the last 3 years, the 49ers here, they signed Sincere McCormick, and he's a probable camp body. But you have the Seahawks subtracting running backs, and they have 3 or 4 good ones, and the 49ers add like a fifth or a sixth running back on the roster for camp purposes, just so the other Mick, Christian McCaffrey, doesn't have to take any reps here.
with all the injuries they get, they need as many camp bodies as possible. I still like Sincere McCormick. I think he should catch on to an actual team's roster, hopefully. But maybe the 49ers want to move on from Garindo or some of the other guys that they've drafted. A lot of people like James. And, in this draft, we'll talk about the NFC next week, but they keep adding running backs. They keep doing it. And none of them have really worked out since they drafted Tevin Coleman a long time ago, and he was okay. The only one that really blew up was the one they traded for, and that was Christian McCaffrey, who was already good.
Absolutely, and I sincerely hope that McCormick finds a team that he can call home as well.
How long were you waiting to say that, Jeff?
Thinking about it the whole time you were talking.
Oh, your jokes are so McCorny.
All right, let's hop over to our 2026 NFL draft. The last weekend we were blessed with the draft, and we finally got to see where some of these rookies got to go, especially after the combine. And first up is the Baltimore Ravens, where they added 2 wide receivers, Jacoby Lane and Elijah Sarrett. They added a tight end, Matthew Hibner, and Josh
Cuevas.
Okay. They added a running back and Adam Randall. Any of those guys fantasy relevant? I know they did add to their offensive line as well, which should really help with their run game and even their pass blocking. But what's your thoughts here?
Well, the guard that they drafted, Vega Ione, is going to be the biggest contributor to their fantasy aspects because he is going to pave the way for the run game and protect Lamar Jackson. Outside of that, I still like Elijah Surratt. I know this is an offense that doesn't really support a lot of wide receivers, but they're down to primarily Mark Andrews as the tight end. I don't really know much about Cuevas or Hibner for that matter. I think that they'll come along on their pass side, but most likely They're there for blocking or 12 personnel situations. They're not really high for me. Maybe it's something to keep an eye on. I was surprised that Jacoby Lane was drafted before Elijah Surratt because to me, Surratt was border of round 2, round 3, and he went round 4. And Lane should have been a day 3 pick, in my opinion, and was drafted in the 3rd round. So that was a little bit confusing for me. Adam Randall is a quality running back, and he was drafted in the 5th round. A lot of running backs fell in this class. I think he's probably the number 2 behind Henry at some point. I mean, they might ease him in because they're very much a rookies got to earn it team, but I
That
think
was
he
under
could be,
Harbaugh.
yeah.
They got a new
He
guy.
could end up being the RB2 behind Henry and spell him and be the guy if Henry gets hurt.
Yeah, that's probably more likely because they still have Hill to pass catch.
Lane, to me, is more of like a vertical receiver at the moment and has to develop his game. But Surratt is the big body who might fill in for Isaiah Likely in formations, not as a tight end, but as a big slot and red zone contested catch guy. In touchdown heavy formats, he could be really good. He could end up being a nice possession guy. So I'm kind of interested in that, but gotta see it work. Gotta see multiple wide receivers work.
Yeah, and they're still going to throw out Bateman, but I have Lane and Sarah at one spot apart in my ranks, early ranks. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out in camp.
I would think early. You think about older uh, DeAndre Hopkins with the Ravens, and Surratt could fill a similar role to what Hopkins was with them.
Gotcha. Yes, the Hopkins didn't really do much with the Ravens for me last year. So I know he has a special place in your heart, but yeah, so the Ravens had 4 or 5 offensive pieces that we could be talking about in fantasy draft. The Buffalo Bills on the next team up here, they traded back a few times, but they ended up with some really good pieces. Their only offensive piece that they ended up with was Skylar Bell. So, what are your thoughts on Skylar Bell and the rest of their draft, if anything stands out to you?
I think Skylar Bell's a really nice upside player. He has some injury stuff to work through, but I really like his fit with the team, and I think he could eventually be a primary starter and probably will work his way into wide receiver 3 sets. He does overlap a lot with Moore, who they traded for with the 2nd round pick, and also Shakir. So all 3 of those guys overlap a lot and could be slot or Z guys. They don't really have a true X wide receiver. I think they're still likely to try to involve Coleman and see if he has a 3rd year bump at this point, 3rd year breakout. But
They're going to try. They will
I was
try.
amazed how many picks they spent on defense. They're trying to retool their entire defense.
Does that tell you how bad they thought Sean McDermott did with the defense? That's what that
Did
tells me.
Sean McDermott do it or did Brandon Bean?
I mean, a defensive minded coach needs to coach up defensive players.
Yeah,
Coaches coach, players play.
I think it's all team dependent on who calls the shots, but yeah, it's a
horrific.
they also have a different defensive coordinator, so part of it is also changing schemes, probably.
Absolutely. I'm excited for what they did. They grabbed more picks. They used one of their 4th round picks on Skyler Bell, so they had 3 of them. So not a real bad pick as long as he pans out. But one of their rivals, the Cincinnati Bengals, the ones that they're always fighting with, they only went one wide receiver, so this feels like a Jermaine Burton replacement in Colby Young. And they grabbed in the 7th round Jack Endries, who had a little bit higher in draft. So I'm surprised that he slipped as far as he did.
Yeah. Tight end was even weirder than running back this year, where a lot of blocking guys went early, and it felt like receiving tight ends were penalized and went late. So injuries could be something good. Colby Young is someone that I've looked at, and I think he's an interesting dart throw. Certainly think he's more mature than Jermaine Burton, which isn't saying much. But the wide receiver 3 is open for the Bengals. It's there. It's their to
Josie.
grasp. Yeah. So I thought the Bengals did a reasonably good job, except for their cornerback selection in round 3, Takario Davis. I thought was a little bit of a reach, but they got Connor Lew, one of the best center prospects. Whether they play him at center or guard, it doesn't really matter. They needed an improvement regardless. And Cassius Howell, if they're running a 3 for defense and they use him at outside linebacker, that would be the best use. He might only be a pass rush specialist early, but he is someone that can help fill the vacancy that they lost in Hendrickson this offseason.
Absolutely. I do like their draft because if you add in Lawrence into this draft as well, I kind of like what they have done. I don't know if it'll be enough, but the Cleveland Browns had felt like 20 picks in this draft. I think it was closer to 10, but they ended up with tackle Spencer Fano, which was huge. They ended up with Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston, 2 wide receivers. So this is going to be a crowded wide receiver room with Bond and Judy, who's getting paid right now. And late they added Joe Royer. So I think that he'll be a compliment to Harold Fannin. But I think Harold Fannon's the guy there. They added Carson Ryan as well at tight end. And then they added Taylon Green also into their quarterback room. So some interesting picks, and I think they have some weapons now, and I think they actually have offensive line now. So what are your thoughts here on the Browns?
I thought they had a really good draft class. I'm not super huge on Casey Concepcion. Denzel Boston, I like, but he's limited. I do think, from what I remember hearing, is that Jerry Jeudy is due a roster bonus soon. So there's a chance that they move on from him via trade or release. Casey Concepcion is a better version of Jerry Jeudy. Denzel Boston is a big body wide receiver that they don't really have. They still have Tillman, who I like,
He's
Bond, who
down
you
now.
like.
Yep.
But I mean, Tillman as the number 3 and Bond as the number 4, or vice versa, means that they have a really good roster. They keep Judy and they're 4 and 5. That's pretty solid too.
I know, but our 2 guys aren't going to get the production that we want them to. But kudos to the Cleveland Browns here. They put out a draft class here that could be open to getting a quarterback next year. So
That's what the smart thing to do is build the roster and then bring the quarterback in.
the cheapie. All right, this was what you were referring to earlier here with the Denver Broncos. They took running back Jonah Coleman in the 4th round, so that's a little bit later than we thought. They took Justin Jolly, tight end, in the 5th, and they took Dallin Bentley in the 7th. So what do you think of the Broncos draft when you add in Jalen Waddle was their 1st round pick this year?
They needed a running back. They brought in a running back. They have a nice 3-man committee with Coleman, RJ Harvey as primary receiving back and change of pace. And then, of course, J.K. Dobbins as the early down thumper until he gets hurt. Jolly seems like he might be the replacement for Ingram and be one of the jokers that they use a lot. They replaced their defensive tackle as
They
well
did.
with the guy out of Texas A. Cage Casey is a decent offensive tackle to have behind their older tackles that might retire after this year. So they need to groom the next guy and have him ready to go. Other than that, I mean, I really don't know much about Dallin Bentley. Unfortunately, he was not on my radar. So interesting Sean Payton pick.
Yep. You know that was Sean Payton, too, because he has made some weird picks throughout the years. But yeah, I really like their draft class. I'm interested to see what Jonah Coleman becomes. And I'm also interested in Justin Jolly. Is he really what they expected Ingram to be? And do they cut Ingram or give Jolly 1 year to play behind him? That will be the question here the next couple of weeks. But your team is up next here, and I'm not sure how you felt about their draft, but they went a guard in the 1st. Looks like they went Caden McDonald in the 2nd, but their major positional players that they drafted were Marlon Klein, tight end, who I didn't even understand who it was, and I know you referenced him as Max Clare very early on with the Germany player, but also Lewis Bond in the sixth as well. So I'll let you fire off here for a minute on the Texans.
The first pick, Kalen Rutledge, was a surprise to me. I don't think he was even whispered about nationally or locally for the Texans.
Do you mean all the trusty beat writers didn't get this?
But he's part of the theme of getting meaner on the offense and getting physical, being a good run blocker. The idea is that he is likely going to fill in as the center. I don't know if he'll be ready right away for that. He needs a lot of snaps there, but that is the idea. And then Cade McDonald was someone who people were targeting for them in the first round, and he made it to the second round for them. They traded up for both guys. After that, it kind of went off the rails. Marlon Klein is not someone that I would have taken in the second round as a tight end because he's very developmental. I would have rather had Max Clare, the guy that I confused him with in a previous episode, because they're both MK tight ends. I swear, when I was watching the pick, I thought the Texans war room looked weird, and Casario did this when he picked him. I'm like, did you just mix them up? Did you just mix up the two tight ends? Because the Rams took Max Clare right after
Few
that.
picks later.
So,
Yep.
yeah. So he has a lot of upside. He's got a lot of polish to go to. So I'm not really thrilled about that. And then the rest of their draft class, to me, was a bust. Don't know what their obsession is with taking USC defensive backs when USC has been one of the worst defensive college football teams since Lincoln Riley got there. But at least Kalen Bullock panned out a couple years ago, so there's that. But the two linebackers they got seem like they're special teams guys. Lewis Bond out of Boston College is slow, but he looks like a special teams guy. And they were talking him up like he was so smart. And Mike, he plays for Bill O'Brien, so it's the same offense. So he knows all your terminology. That's why you're saying that. But yeah, I'm not thrilled with it. I was very disappointed with their entire draft. They let a bunch of guys pass them by that I would have preferred over who they took. But the first two picks I thought were good.
Hey, you just got to nail your first couple of picks, and we'll see if their division rival here, the Indianapolis Colts, did it next. They obviously got Sauce Gardner with their first pick, but they went with CJ Allen with their second pick. But later in the draft, in the seventh round, they grabbed a running back in Seth McGowan and wide receiver that fell in Deion Burks. So I think Burks is going to be interesting because I think he could be the third receiver on the team relatively quickly. But I'll let you tell me your thoughts on their offensive pieces here.
Well, I liked their first three picks of the draft, and linebacker CJ Allen, safety AJ Hawley, and guard Jalen Farmer. And then their middle picks I thought kind of sucked. And they finished with decent dart throws on offense with Seth McGowan and Deion Burks, both of whom are very intriguing players. Deion Burks, if he gets some polish, can be really, really interesting. A shorter guy, he's fast. Yeah. He could be a good returner for them. He might even end up being the wide receiver 3 for this roster. So that's someone I would potentially target in dynasty formats and, round 2 or round 3, somewhere
Yeah, I
around
was going to
there.
say
Yeah.
that's the third rounder, but yeah. He went in the seventh round, so he's not for sure going to even make the roster.
I think you throw out all of the metrics based off of where guys get drafted for this draft class, other than, first round. First round obviously means a lot more. But if guys are day 3, you just throw out the fact that they're day 3 and do you believe in the player or not? Because it's going to get weird from now on with all the NIL. The draft classes are not going to be as dense as they used to be.
Well,
And
they will eventually, right? Because people eventually have to come out. Eventually, you'll get the same amount of talent.
yeah, but then they'll all be 26-year-olds and you'll
That's true.
wonder why. So, this was a very, very weird draft that had weird values all over the place. I think that he should have gone higher. I liked him more than 7th round. So whatever you want to say about him, you can say he's a seventh round pick and he's taken late. Burks is a very high potential guy, but very volatile what he can be. Seth McGowan, I don't like him as much, especially in this situation because got Jonathan Taylor, and then you have Giddens, who I like better than McGowan too. But McGowan would be a solid running back 3 for them.
Absolutely, and I mean, I just want to know where to draft Seth, and I don't know where I rank him just yet, and we'll get to those ranks in a few weeks. But next up is another one of your division rivals, and they went 2 tight ends kind of early-ish. They went with Nate Borkircher. They went with Tanner Coat, and they went with 2 receivers as well with Josh Cameron and C.J. Williams. What are your thoughts on their draft? Their top 3 receivers seem pretty set. Their Brendan Strange seems pretty set at the top tight end. What are your thoughts here?
I thought they had the worst draft out of every team.
Okay.
And that includes the Rams that we'll talk about next week. But I thought it was terrible. They might have saved some value getting Emmanuel Pregnon, the guard out of Oregon in the 3rd round, who was almost projected to be a first rounder and was in a lot of classes. The tight end they got out of Texas A&M was a pure blocker and not even an exceptional blocker. He was an okay blocker. So it made no sense to me. Made no sense to anyone else out there that followed that type of prospect. Tanner Kozel is probably the second best pick behind Emmanuel Pregnon in their entire class. But you got to remember, they still have Strange as their tight end 1. So maybe Kozel will beat him out at some point, but there's no clear pathway. I will say it's interesting that they took Josh Cameron and CJ Williams, who neither one of them was very big on my radar, and they did not take a corner at all. So that tells me Travis Hunter is locked in at corner for the Jaguars this season,
So no receiver.
he will probably play situational packages at wide receiver, but they already have Brian Thomas Jr., Jacoby Myers, and Parker Washington, all 3 of whom I think are better wide receivers at this moment than Travis Hunter is.
That's fair. We'll see if your year 3 prediction stands true for him or if Alex eats an L.
I think they will be in position because they should have their own draft pick next year, right?
Mm-hmm.
They might be in position to take one of the really good corner prospects next year, or between whether they pick, if whether they stink or whether they're okay, and trading one of their wide receivers to move up to get a corner prospect to put Travis Hunter back wide receiver year 3. But yeah, this might be, if you're in a dynasty and you have the capacity to stash him, I mean, I would trade low for him if possible and stash him on your roster and hope that he has that year 3 breakout.
Absolutely. And we can hop over to the Kansas City Chiefs next, who had 2 first-round picks. They traded up for Mansour Delane, and we like him. They got Peter Woods, who I also thought was a first-round pick, so that was 2 very big defensive picks. They went defense early and often. Later, they went Emmett Johnson, running back, who probably will back up Kenneth Walker. They went Cyrus Allen at wide receiver, and they went Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback.
Yeah, I really like Mansour Delaney. I thought he was a true lockdown corner and makes sense to, risk trading up for someone who might have actually fell to 9 for them because you want to ensure that you get that guy. Peter Woods, along with anyone else that was drafted from Clemson in this draft class. Clemson had a really disappointing year in both offense and defense. A lot of that was bad coaching. So I think you're buying on the upside from his 2024 college year, and you will be saying this a lot about anyone from Clemson, but he also gets a chance to compete with and learn from the defensive tackle that they already have out there. They also got an edge rusher, R. Mason Thomas. Sorry. But the 3 offensive guys they got at the end of the draft, very low capital for tremendous upside. Emmett Johnson is one of the better running back prospects, and he lasted all the way to the 5th round. He's immediate insurance if anything happens to Kenneth Walker, who is not the picture of perfect health. Cyrus Allen is a very intriguing wide receiver who might end up being their number 3. And with the health and off the field issues that they have with the other 2 wide receivers, he may have a bigger role than people expect. And Garrett Nussmeier is someone we both liked. I had him as a top 3 quarterback in my rankings, and I thought a team with a bigger need at quarterback would actually take a stab at him. He ended up going all the way down in the 7th round, and I think he is going to start as the quarterback 3 for them because they have Justin Fields. I don't think Justin Fields is long for the Chiefs. He'll probably just be a 1-year fill-in for them. And then I think Nussmeier will be the long-term backup for the Chiefs.
Gotcha, for at least 4 years. Because if he does play well, he could get a starting job or traded, or he could find his way to the practice squad and signed by somebody else. But a guy that won't be signed by anybody else or find their way to the practice squad, the Las Vegas Raiders go with 101 with Fernando Mendoza. And then they forget about offense until the 4th round, where they pick Mike Washington Jr. to kind of split carries, probably do like a 65-35 split with Genty, which can't make you the most happy person in the world because Mike Washington Jr. had one of the most impressive combines that we've seen. And then wide receiver late with Malik Benson, who I don't particularly love, but not a lot of help for Mendoza early on.
Well, they already have the best tight end in football in Brock Bowers. They got the best or second best center in the offseason. They've got the hottest coaching name of the offseason cycle. So those things should all help Mendoza. And they got Kirk Cousins to work out the kinks of the offense so Mendoza doesn't get overwhelmed or beat up. So those are good things. And Trey Zune, the center from Texas A&M, who likely plays guard, considering they spent a lot of money on a center this offseason. Low risk, high upside signing in cornerback Jermod McCoy, who may have a knee issue that might completely derail his entire career if it's not fixed appropriately. But if it is, he's potentially a lockdown corner himself. So these were interesting moves. But Mike Washington, I'm disappointed he didn't go to a team where he had a better chance to fight for a starting job, but he is a very interesting complement to Ashton Genty, where he is more of a power back, even though he's fast. He is a more physical guy that likes to hit the hole and knock people down and break tackles by being physical, whereas Genty is a more finesse, dance around kind of running back, dodging, spinning. They complement each other very, very well. I think that will give both of them a chance to make the most of their opportunities. Vegas really didn't have any quality running backs behind Genty, so this makes a lot of sense. They're going to be a little bit more run heavy than people think, and I don't think that's a bad thing. But man, I really would have liked both of them to have their own backfields.
Exactly, and watch Washington overtake Genty here. And
He won't.
I think you just threw all
He
your picks,
don't be silly.
putting it into the universe. All right, anything on Malik Benson before we hop over to the Chargers?
No, he was not really on my radar. So
All right. So really, the Chargers went with their interior offensive line was their main focus for this draft here. They drafted 3 interior, 1 exterior offensive linemen, and they also went Brennan Thompson, who Mike McDaniel would give his shirt off his back for.
yeah, that was a funny video where he went up and told the GM, "If you take this guy, I will literally take my shirt off." We're like, all right,
Never know
but
what he's into.
there are a lot of evaluators in the media that really like Brennan Thompson. I think he could be a reasonable wide receiver 3 for them. He's a little on the small side, but he's very fast. He's very reminiscent to like a Worthy type player, but he's lighter weight, so that would be a concern. But if they move on from Quentin Johnston at some point, he is the likely guy to take that vertical role. But if Quentin
Uh,
Johnston develops more year 4, then he is a number 4 role player behind the top 3 guys there. So, considering the fact that the offensive coordinator wanted him, I would think that he has a good pathway to being a good contributor for them.
Yeah, I've heard his nickname is Timu Tyreek, so that's what the media is calling him. But yeah, the Chargers didn't do much else on offense. I mean, they added Keaton Mitchell in the offseason, so they didn't really have many holes to fill. And I don't think Keenan Allen will be back at this point either with what they have at receiver. So he should just retire a Charger and call it a career because he wasn't that great. But speaking of Tyreek's former team here, the Dolphins, they had 12 or 13 picks in this draft, which was absolutely insane. It's everything that they needed too, because they were struggling here with cap and capital. So they went 3 receivers in Caleb Douglas, Chris Bell, and Kevin Coleman Jr., not Keon Coleman, it's his son. And then they went Will Kamarak at tight end and Sadu. I'm not even going to try his last name. I'll have to wait for the announcers to do that. Traore, and so they did stock up on some weapons. Any of the weapons or the that you're interested in from the Dolphins' perspective?
I thought the first wide receiver they drafted was the worst one. Caleb Douglas out of Texas Tech. I don't even think he was the best receiver in this draft class from Texas Tech. Chris Bell, I like a lot for the upside. And I think out of the class that they have this year, so out of their entire wide receiver group now, Chris Bell has the best chance to be their number 1. That's not to say they won't draft a wide receiver next year, but out of who they have, Chris Bell is my favorite wide receiver.
All right,
And
any receiving tight ends?
I don't like the tight ends that they picked. I think they're more on the blocking side, but I think it's Traore. That's a very popular soccer last name on the world stage.
Real football.
Yeah.
Anything else from the Dolphins here?
They had a very Green Bay Packers draft.
They're the Packers South now. Hot Packers. Not the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, the hot sun of Miami. But back up north, the Patriots are up next here, and I kind of like that they drafted a tight end to start kind of maybe replacing Hunter Henry and Eli Redone. They also drafted a quarterback, which was odd for me, and then they drafted a running back, Jam Miller, out of Alabama. What was your thoughts on their offensive pieces?
I didn't like their draft class at all. I like their first pick, Caleb Lomo, better than most people in the media seem to grade them for, but Gabe Yakis is better than probably some people give him credit for too. So the first 2 picks, fine. Eli Raridan, I think, is the tight end 2 for the team, and he is replacing somebody else. I don't think he replaces Hunter Henry. I think
Ever?
Hunter Henry's no. I think they do two tight end sets. Everyone
Yeah.
is switching to 2 or 3 tight end sets now.
But Hunter Henry will be 32 this year, so it's not like he's a spring chicken.
He's young at heart, Jeff.
You just love him, so and you don't want him to be replaced.
I love good players, Jeff. I love good players.
He's gonna be in the old folks' home pretty soon, so
I don't really like much of this draft group at all, but I will say the next team also drafted a tight end when they already have a young one that they just drafted last year, and that is the New York/New Jersey Jets. After going defensive end with their second overall pick, they went Kenyon Sadiq at 16 to the surprise of many, and followed that up at pick 30 with Omar Cooper Jr. Then they drafted a couple defensive guys, and then the 4th round guy, Cade Klubnik. I I find it weird that they went on offense as much as they did, and the fact that they have Frank Reich as their offensive coordinator, who's the most vanilla and classic-minded offensive coordinator. They got 2 of the most screen-heavy, movement-heavy weapons in Kenyon Sadiq and Omar Cooper. I'm like, there's no way Frank Reich has evolved enough to actually utilize these guys. And they already have Garrett Wilson. They already have, I think they still have Mechie, and they traded for AD Mitchell last year. And they also have Jason Taylor's son at tight end. So I don't know what they're doing there. I felt like they had more needs and could have completely addressed their defense. I don't like the fit for the weapons, and then the head coach might not even be there next year. Who knows who's going to be calling the shots on offense next year?
Yeah, so this was probably GM picks then, and I think Aaron Glenn believes that his play calling will fix the defense. But I think Kate Klubnik could be the quarterback by the end of the season, and these weapons actually could see some usage if the quarterback's any good. But I will say John Mechie is a Carolina Panther right now because they declined his option, his restricted free agent option, and the Carolina Panthers signed him, so he's like their 6th or 7th receiver.
Well, the Jets are also bringing in Russell Wilson for a visit, so they might have Geno Smith, Russell Wilson, and Clay Kubnik
Yeah, I
on the same
mean,
team.
it is possible, but I will say that keeping the quarterback emergency list up to date by just meeting with Russell Wilson's not going to hurt anybody. So we will see. But we can hop over to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who went primarily offense for maybe the first time ever that I remember. They went Jeremy Bernard, they went wide receiver, they went quarterback Drew Aller, they went wide receiver Caden Wetjen, who I believe is just a returner, and they went tight end Riley Nowakowski, and they also went Eli Heidenreich in the 7th round. So a lot of offensive pieces in this draft, but I don't expect Riley, the tight end, to get any play this year behind Washington and Freiermuth. But a third tight end, and looks like a couple of receivers that they just got that will compete with Roman Wilson. So, what are your thoughts there?
Well, I think everyone groaned when they took Eli Heidenreich because everybody wanted him to go to a much better team that will actually use him. But
Like McCarthy.
Jeremy Bernard is going to be an interesting wide receiver 3 for them. Drew Aller has the toolbox, but not the capacity so far to use it. I liked Jennings Dunker and Max Ecker a lot. Caden Wetjen I thought was kind of a waste of a 4th round pick, but
Until he gets 2 or 3 return touchdowns this year.
I do think people are underselling the Pittsburgh offense this year. McCarthy is a better offensive coordinator than virtually anyone that Tomlin has had other than when he had Bruce Arians. And yeah, I think that while they are still likely to be like a 9-8 kind of team, their offense is going to be much better than it used to be.
It'll be fun. I think Rodgers is going to target Pittman early and often too, because I think Pittman's going to be one of his favorites when he does return to the team. So I'm kind of with you and excited for this team. But this next team had a couple of surprises here with Carnell Tate, 4th overall. Did not see that coming. I didn't see that mocked really anywhere, considering the resources that they've spent over the last few seasons on wide receiver. And then Nicholas Singleton in the 5th, which is interesting. And then my guy got drafted in the 7th, Jaron Kanak, tight end. So what did you think of the Titans draft here?
I thought the Carnell Tate pick made a lot of sense. He overlaps with Ridley a decent amount. Ridley is on his way out and had to take a contract restructure to stay on the team. I like a lot of their defensive picks as well. And to me, Nicholas Singleton, he's like a restart on he's very similar where he is likely to be a receiving back and change of pace guy. I don't think he has all the makeup to be a starter. So this is one of the best case scenarios. If you have Tony Pollard, you should be very thrilled that it worked out this way because it could have it could have gone bad. Could have been a huge replacement. So, but Spears owners, unfortunate news for you, and I think Singleton's going to take Spears' job.
This year. All right, that does it for the AFC.
All right, that was a nice little go through here. Let's wrap up the episode with this does it for this episode. Thank you for downloading or listening to this episode, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please leave us a comment and share the show. Every little bit helps.
You can find us on all podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy, and with our handle N2E Fantasy on all social media platforms. Please join our community and give us a follow. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and remember, it's truly never too early for fantasy football. Thank you again.
Bye, everybody.